Welcome to Deeper with Darshana, where we skip the small talk and dive down into what's raw and real. Pleasure, shame, justice, power, healing, liberation. These essential aspects of our human experience are among my favorite topics to explore, and I'm inviting you to join me. I'm your host, Darshana Avila, somatic sex and trauma expert and creator of the Erotic Wholeness Method. It is my belief that we are erotic by nature, and our erotic nature encompasses so much more than you might realize. Come along as I drop into curious conversations with other passionate pros and sensual seekers, and occasionally share musings of my own. Bring your curiosity, your sacred, messy, beautiful humanity, and all the parts of yourself. And let's go deeper together. Welcome back to Deeper with Darshana. Today, I am going to be in conversation with Jimanekia Eborn, the self-titled trauma queen. And she deserves the title. Jimanekia is a sexual assault and rape survivor who lived through a whole lot of life at a very young age. And she has made it her mission and her journey to transform the way people understand and heal from trauma. She is known for bringing a ton of humor to it. We had some laughs. I loved her energy. We talked about things like why breaking up with your therapist might just be the best thing you could do, how spirituality has informed her path, meditation, the role that laughter plays in all of this. So you are going to love it. I can't wait to hear what you think. Jimanekia Eborn, a trauma specialist, educator, creative, and strategist who is bringing nearly 2 decades of experience in mental health, sexuality, education, and survivor advocacy to our conversation today. And she is the founder of Tending the Garden, a nonprofit organization that supports survivors of sexual assault from marginalized communities, and also the host of the Trauma Queen podcast. Jimanekia's work bridges care, culture, and systems change, consulting with media, education, and wellness organizations on trauma-informed practices and equity-driven leadership, which is basically why I want to be in a conversation with her today, because these are topics that I'm so delighted and excited about. So am I correct in referring to you as the trauma queen? Is that the reason the podcast is thusly named? Shall I
reverse? The podcast came first, and then the name will come after.
Okay. Well, welcome, Trauma Queen. I am delighted to be with you. And so here's a question, because I get asked this a lot, and I'm going to put it to you as the Trauma Queen. What is your simplest operating definition of trauma? Because it's a word that we hear all the time, and I think people actually understand it in different ways.
I think it can be told in many different ways, but a simple way is an event or an experience that happens that can change your life. As simple as that.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. So is there something that happened in your life? I'm aware you are the daughter of a survivor. I believe I read that, and you've had your own journey yourself. What are the things that got you to this moment in time, to doing the work that you do and the advocacy that you are dedicated to?
Yeah, the blueprint of it all. I always like to say that I am a child of trauma. And I like to preface it with, I'm going to say a few hard things. So let's take a breath and let's get ready. So I am a child of trauma, and my mother was murdered in front of me when I was 1 by my sperm donor. I was almost kidnapped in that moment, but his sister was able to get me away from him. He fled. He is in prison still. And that happened very early on. And then at 21, I was raped. And I always like to say that I was raped versus sexually assaulted, because I believe that many of us in these feminine bodies have been sexually assaulted more times than we can account for, because people don't know how to not sexualize us or not put their hands on us. And so, yes, all of us can experience it, but we have a higher chance of sexual assault. And so I believe that has structured my work of who I am. And also, I think that this work chose me, because the ways that I am attached to it, the ways that I find it so easy, it doesn't feel like work. Does the energy aspect of it feel like work? Absolutely. Now, but the actually doing and showing up, that feels like a gift.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, as someone who also supports other people around their healing journeys, trauma remediation, it is a gift to get to do this work. So I really join you in that sentiment. And thank you for sharing a little about what you lived through and what formed and shaped you, which is such a unique perspective to have, having gone through those things and then supporting others. I can only imagine depth of empathy that you're able to offer, which goodness knows we all need when we're on our healing journeys.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there takes a lot of sympathy and empathy because you need both. If we're
Fair,
too empathetic and we're in the hole, then we're all kind of screwed. So you
fair.
have to be able to separate a little bit and be like, I see you over there. Here's some tools, but you got to handle it. And it takes time to learn that. I don't think they teach that in school. I don't think they teach it enough in school.
That's a
Uh,
really point. And just in case listeners are like, huh, what's the difference? Would you be up for defining empathy and sympathy for people who may not actually know
yeah.
how to distinguish those two things?
Yeah, I love this. I've been seeing I saw a visual of this maybe this year, and it's been my favorite way to describe it is think of like a hole in the ground, and you come upon a hole in the ground and you look down and someone's in the hole and you're like, "Oh no, that's so wild." Like, I'm so sorry you're stuck down there. I hope you get out. You're going to be amazing. That's sympathy. I'm not climbing in there with you. I'm giving you support. I'm outside versus oh no, look at you in that hole. Let me get my ladder. Now I'm down in the hole with you. We're going to figure out how to get out of here.
Mhm.
Now this is empathy because now I've joined you and we are working into it. Both are needed
Right.
in all situations, and you can drown in both. So be mindful of who you are and how you show up. But I really love seeing like a little photo of someone just looking down into a hole and another person. You're like, how is this going to go? Is it sympathy or is it empathy?
I love that example because I'm more of a visual kinesthetic learner. So the moment you started describing that, I was like, oh, yeah, yeah, I can do that. Out here, I can maybe even throw a rope down there, but I'm
Absolutely.
still out here is
Yeah.
very, very different than the joining. And I think a lot of us in the feminine bodies, and also in those of us who are born female and acculturated as girls and women, the people pleasing, the caretaking, the tending to relationship that is so acculturated into us really has us dive into that hole pretty readily if we don't have a greater sense of our own boundaries and are not really in our full agency. I'm assuming that that's a lot of what you are supporting your community with. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I literally just wrote this down. If even any of the work, I always say this, the through line of my work is safety. And the ways that this is, the ways that we as feminine people or in our bodies, the ways that we operate, I do think that a lot of that is through safety. And the ways that I look at safety are in two ways. So that external, the ways that we're used to, like, is anything around me? Is anyone going to touch me? Is anything going to touch me? Is anything in the way or blocking me? That's one way. And then the other way is when you look at it internally. What are the thoughts that are happening for me? What did someone say? What's ruminating? All of these ways that like we can carry and kind of maneuver through, it's the same ways that I think about the ways that we need to support each other. And it's like the different ways of safety. And that's coming up a lot in the places that I'm working. It is the safety aspects because we're consuming technology, we're consuming stories. We're worried depending on our different identities, like safety around us. Now people are more cautious about how other individuals are. And I think that there's a lot of individuals that are struggling right now with what safety looks like and feels like for them. And it's so harmful in our communities.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because I'm of the mindset that because safety can never be guaranteed externally,
No.
really where our deepest opportunity for a sense of agency and personal power is how do we feel safe in ourselves? How do we negotiate for and create safe circumstances as much as possible when we're relating with others? And so what you're speaking to, the way so many, especially of marginalized identities, so many people are feeling just deeply unsafe in the world right
Yeah.
now. Um,
Yeah.
our transkin, women of color in particular, and I get to walk in the world as a white cis woman, so I am neither of those things, and I still feel it, right? So,
Mhm.
So I'm curious, like around this idea that safety can never be guaranteed on the outside, what are some of your go-tos around guiding others to cultivate more of that felt sense of safety within and then to extend that into their relationships?
Yeah, I think finding yourself, right? I've been thinking about this a lot in like my different relationships, and it's like, how can I find things that bring me joy if I don't know myself? How can I figure out what feels safe for me if I don't know what doesn't feel safe for me? So and I don't know if this is a thing that you also personally, it's like in this time I've been doing like a lot of self-reflecting in general. And it's like, oh, these also have changed. So I think talking to people about being flexible and being open to expansion and going, oh, this used to work, but now it's 2025. It's a new ball game.
Right.
And so being able to be flexible, and I don't know if you know, with clients, you also chat about this, is the resiliency that we all have to have. And if it's like a mental aspect and what safety looks like, and, does that change depending on your environment? Does that change depending on how you are presenting?
Mhm.
Like all of these things can vary. And so it's being flexible and being adaptable. And also the sad part is a lot of talking about how do you navigate with others. And I say that in the sense of like having a buddy, like community, like having people to like navigate with. And it's not always like a physical thing, right? Like it can be like a person that you just check in with. I think that is really helpful navigating in all communities right now, because it can feel so overwhelming and isolating. um that has been a big thing, and it's the things that I think that people don't talk about. People go, you should go to therapy and get a therapist, and are you going to the parks? Did you go on a mental health walk? Here's the thing, this is where I piss people off. As a mental health provider, I also go, all therapists aren't great people. And they go, and I'm like, anybody could pass the test. I know, crazy. You can also break up with your therapist. Oh my God, she's getting wild, y'all. But it's true. Like, there are so many other things than just like going on a mental health walk. Is that helpful? Yeah, but like, what are you doing on the walk? Like, there's an expansion. Like, you walked, and then what? Did you process anything? Did you think? Were you moving your body? Were you dancing? Did you catch up with someone? Like, oh, you went to therapy, but did you actually talk about things, or did you show up in bullshit like a lot of people do? And your therapist was like, well, they're great. So two of you are doing no work. So there's a yes and that sometimes I've adapted into conversations.
Okay. Yes. And there are multiple things that I want to go back to. Okay. So first, this idea about being flexible. Something that sparked in my mind hearing you talk about that. We know that like nervous system regulation is a hot topic right now,
It's
as
new.
well
They
as
just found out about her.
I know. As well it should be. And the way that we love to simplify things and kind of get it down to its most derivative. What I hear a lot of people equating that with is the idea that you must always be zen and you must always be relaxed. But a healthy
No.
nervous system's resilience means we can activate, right? We can actually get our energy up and out and direct it and move.
And it's healthy.
Needed. That's healthy. And then we can settle back down into more relaxation and receptivity when that's what's called for, when that's what we choose for ourselves. So that's what sparked in my mind hearing you speak about like the flexibility and the changeability of what we're needing, what we needed in 2020 and what we need in 2025, for instance.
Two different people.
Like two different people. And ideally, I don't know about you, like I don't want to be the same person I was 5 years ago.
Can't be.
The growth.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you shouldn't be, right? Like there's no way to be that same person, because there's so many things that have evolved.
Exactly. And now the whole idea that you can break up with your therapist. Okay. First of all, I love my therapist, but
I love
I
mine.
I loved my last therapist, and I broke up with her not because I didn't love her, because I was done with what she could offer and what I needed. And so I love that you brought that in. And the other piece, that therapists are humans too. I see a lot of this actually because given that my work is very sex and intimacy focused, many of my clients come in having been harmed
in a therapeutic relationships where their therapist's bias or ignorance around whether that is non-monogamous relating or differences in gender or sexual orientation, or not actually knowing how to handle somebody's trauma in a good way, have really created harm. And so, yes, therapists are people too. They're also all not created equal. So, I love the permission to be like, yeah, you can break up with your therapist if that's not working for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And also, if you can't break up with your therapist, that's probably a sign that you have other relationships that you can't break apart from. See, listen,
Take yourself with you wherever you go.
We're getting a little pokey. People are getting offended here.
I hope. Well, this is all here. This is all here to help inspire some good growth, stir up some good trouble.
No, I really hope that people understand that yes, therapists are people, that there is a practice that you can create for yourself, and that it can be something that you change. It can be something that you curate with someone else. And there's so many options. Like people, when I was raped, I didn't talk about it for years. Like I was raped at 21. I didn't talk about it until I was 28. And that's when I actually transitioned my career, and I was writing articles and interviews were coming out. And I was like, ooh, I should probably tell people before this interview comes out. Yeah, kind of backwards. But what I was able to learn in all of that was, for me, I needed to figure out spirituality first. And I think that for some people, they're like, well, I don't want to talk about church. I didn't say church. I said spirituality. I am someone that feels like you need to believe in something as an anchor. You could believe in these trees. I don't care. You can believe in the crystals. I don't care. You can believe in God, whatever that looks like. But like having something, like some kind of stability, I think is really helpful for people to ground in. And again, cults exist, and California has a capital of them. So be mindful.
Fair. I mean, and I couldn't agree more about spirituality being so integral to any healing wholeness journey, to any, path of personal growth and evolution, because yes, it's about stepping into your power in the ways that you're able to. But for me, some of the greatest power that I've known is in surrendering my power to an idea of someone, something, some entity greater than, higher than myself. And that's true in both my personal spirituality. I've got a history in 12-step rooms, and we talk about a higher power there, and it really is such an incredible thing to be able to hand it over, right, to whatever your concept of spirit might be. That's taken me so many places. You're also giving me a perfect segue. You didn't know, but I wanted to talk about I read that tending the garden, the idea for that, the seed for that took root for you on a silent retreat. And I know a lot of people, like, we've got the meditators out there who are like, yes, give me my Vipassana. And then people who are like, oh my God, I need to sit still for 5 minutes. Are you fucking kidding me? What is your relationship to silence, to meditation? And I'd love to hear the story of how that seed really got planted during that experience for you.
Well, I was seeking that Vipassana. Honestly, I feel like a silent retreat was something I was looking for a long time. I think silence is so powerful. I think that there's a lot that is told in silence. People think you always have to be talking.
But your hair's...
I know. It's so funny. The person I'm dating, we were just talking about, but he was like, you just have a lot of words. I was like, you fix your face. But there's so much.
I'm going to totally interrupt you with a little tiny sidebar about that, because I'm reading the book Eve, and I will put this in the show notes. If you have not heard of this book, it's phenomenal. And it's a whole treatise on how female evolution has shaped humanity. And I just read a chapter that said this whole idea that females and women talk more than men. There is no statistical evidence that that is true, y'all. It's just not true. It's hype. So please continue.
I believe that it's a cop out because you don't want to pay attention. But well, don't get me revved up. But I was looking for a silent retreat, and something about Vipassana, for folks that don't know about it. It is a beautiful practice. 10 days of silence. Yes, there are shorter ones. My friends are like, I can't do 10 days. You have to do the 10 days first, but you can do others. And they have them all over the world, not the country, all over the world. And what really struck me was it's free and people show up to donate their time because they just want you to be a better person.
That's incredible. And I love hearing that, yeah, the meditation space was what gave you the opportunity to really flesh that out. I know for a lot of people, and I said it jokingly earlier, but I mean, hearing about a 10-day Vipassana, which Vipassana, I have experience with that. I sat my first 10-day in 2014. And that is a Buddhist tradition of seated silent meditation primarily. And that can be really, really rigorous, especially for trauma survivors. You know, so a lot of us who are processing trauma in our bodies, whether we are intentionally doing that, or rather to say consciously doing so, meaning we've chosen our healing, or we're still very much in the throes of it and have not begun that healing journey. The idea of sitting still is incredibly intimidating, horrifying to many people.
Yeah.
And so knowing that that was like the seed of this whole body of work that is ultimately supporting people with trauma, what are some of the ways that you actually help people to find access to stillness and to be able to be in their bodies in such a way that that sense of safety we spoke of earlier is available to them?
Yeah, I think it doesn't have to be so boring. I think it often is so boring, so I try to make it fun. Something that I say quite often is if you are laughing, you're breathing. If you're breathing, you're present. And so I like to have a little laughter because then you're being present in that moment. And then also asking people what they like. I don't think enough of we talk at people quite often, but we don't talk to them. And it's like, what do you like? What feels actually grounding for you? You like hardcore rock? If that allows you to sit and meditate because metal's blasting, all right, cool. Then let's do that, right? Like meditation in silence doesn't just have to be about the outside. It can be, again, that internal safety of like, this brings me peace and this actually calms my brain.
Yeah.
And so meeting people where they are, what a concept. Again, it's so fun. It's so fun. How do you like to do it? Like, what do you like to do with people you work with?
Well, yeah, for myself personally and for people I work with, this idea of meeting someone where they're at is integral. And there was a chapter of my life where seated meditation was the thing. Like I felt really at home in that. It felt more easeful, more being the operative word here. It's never easy. You know, and increasingly as I went through some things that really got my nervous system tone more ratcheted upward, I've needed movement meditation as the primary thing. I dance, I shake, I want to sweat and move it through my body. And so clients get it different ways from me because, to your point, I'm meeting them where they're at. The thing that I noticed, you know, what you said about asking someone what they like, a lot of people come to me because they don't know how to answer that question for themselves.
Sure.
And that right there is often the starting point of saying like, okay, well, first we got to help you be able to track what's going on in your body. Where's
That's
the yes?
going back to figure out who you are.
Exactly. And then presenting some options. Well, we could try this or that, you know, an A/B test, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really wild in the best way. It's such a gratifying experience when someone who previously came in with a story like, oh, I have no idea what I like. I really don't think I have any preferences, or worse, I don't have any boundaries, or everything is a boundary. It's like, no. I'm not going to buy that story. Like, let's actually excavate some of this, because many people have not had opportunities like what you're presenting here to really consider, well, what would do it for me? What does give me pleasure? What is going to be my proverbial path up the mountain, as it were? And I love hearing that that's central to how you're organizing things.
I also think that, you know, taking off these pedestal ideas of what it should look like, when people go, oh, that is something I enjoy. Like, it doesn't have to look one way, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's like, oh, it's not meditation. Well, it might not be meditation in that traditional sense. Like, again, that flexibility of like allowing people to go, oh, this is this thing for me. It might not be for you. So I think it's, you know, like you said, being open, being flexible, meeting people where they are, and also reminding them that they're not broken if they like things that are a little different.
Here's to it. Yeah. You know, and something related to this that's bubbling up for me, I got my start on my spiritual path through yoga. So it has been a almost 25-year relationship that I've had with yoga at this point in time. And one of the things that I'm always making a reference to around meditation, around asana practice is we got to put this in context. These bodies of wisdom, including Vipassana, were generally created for young boys who are brought up in a monastic environment to practice with. We are not that. We are not in those bodies. We are not living in social structures that mirror that. So what we need as modern females, and that's not exclusive to females, we could just say modern humans, is largely going to be very different, especially in our dominant culture, when it's such rugged individualism and many of us are dancing our survival dances 24/7, 365 with very little reprieve. We don't have the community structure that an ashram environment 3,000 years ago provided, or even an ashram present day, right? So the idea of like seated meditation as this thing to be upheld as the right way to do it, it's like, yeah, we can't be so precious about all that, nor can we be so narrow about it, because it just doesn't apply to many people's circumstances.
No, it's hard. It's also hard. Let's even name it. Like, meditation is not, people are like, well, you should meditate. And I'm like, first of all, stop talking to me like that. Two, it's hard. Like, I definitely had to like sit and track and give myself grace and go, okay, I did 5 minutes today. Okay, I can do 10 minutes. Like, you've done Vipassana, getting up to being able to actually do it. That is it's a
and I haven't played in that in years. I go to a local meditation.
You said I did it.
I did it, but I'm not doing it. I do it in small doses. And, you know, the meditation space that I am connected to, which I'll shout out, East Bay Meditation Center here in Oakland, is centered around social justice, radical inclusivity, disability justice, very queer POC like oriented. And so the space there is all about the values and the ethos that we're here discussing, which is equalizing access and really being adaptable and flexible, which is what we were speaking about in the beginning, you know, like creating it in a way that works for you. And I hear that that's really what you're passionate about, empowering others to do as well. I want to talk a little about the role that things like pleasure and beauty have in the trauma healing journey and just thriving wellness in life. I definitely did a little stalking you before we had this conversation, and I saw this video of you doing like flower arranging, and I was like, oh yeah, like joy, just beauty for the sake of beauty. What is your relationship to that all?
Yeah, I think it's a big reminder that we have to remind individuals of, the reminder of beauty is already around us and it's here. And also that it's not something that we have to earn, that it's already ours. And as survivors, and again, I think that most of us are survivors or something. If you're like, I'm not a survivor, I'm like, oh, okay, you might not be of like sexual assault or whatever, but were you alive during 2020 to about now? So you've been in a pandemic. Okay, cool. So you know about trauma. That's all I want to say. Just it's just like a little drop off. But you know, with all of this, it's, how do I explain it to myself? So for me, I think that joy is something that we don't realize is something that we actually need, in the sense of, I have a friend named Thea Monnier, and her whole practice is around joy and the ways that it is healing, and the ways that it is connective, and the ways that it recharges us. And I was like, yeah, like anytime you see, like, I'll talk about sexual assault, anytime you see like a depiction of them, they're so sad. They're so sad. They're so broken. And yes, it is a shitty thing that happens, and it will, you know, be with you forever, but they're not sad forever.
Right.
And then they get shamed when they have joy. Like, oh my God, she was just assaulted. How is she laughing? Because people deserve to laugh. People deserve all these things. And so part of the work is constantly reminding people, like, no, you need joy. You don't have to just be in the sad parts. You don't have to be in the hard parts. You don't have to be in the hole. Like, that's so important. And also, as survivors of things, pleasure is also so important and so needed. And it can be sexual pleasure. It could be eating. I'm about to eat some cake after this. That's pleasurable. Like, it's the little things that go, okay. Hard is all around us. Being an adult is hard. They don't tell you about that. It's quite rude. Being an adult is hard. Being, someone that has to pay bills is hard. Being someone that has to feed themselves is hard. What if you have to take care of other people? There's enough hard in existence that you don't have to fight for joy. When it comes, you go, thank you. I deserve this. And so it's a lot of conversations that I like to have and remind people is good morning, a Monday motivation. You deserve everything around you. You deserve it because it's already yours. You deserve to go out and smell some flowers, literally do the cheesy things. That's also free. And that's another thing is that pleasure doesn't have to be expensive. Joy doesn't have to be expensive. Like, we have the tools. We got little phalanges. They go real far. Little toesies. They help you move, right? Like, if we're able to use our bodies, because ableism is also real. And if we're being honest, all of us are becoming disabled slowly, constantly. And so enjoy the things that we can do while you can still do them.
Yes. Yeah. It's the way that capitalism has taught us to see these as only for a certain elite few or something that have to come with a heavy price tag. It just flies in the face of what it means to be in a body. And even if that body has certain limits of ability or differences of ability, what we have access to can still be a source of pleasure. Sight, sound, taste, touch. That's where I always go. Like, bring it down to your senses, right? That's the most simple and accessible way to really access it, and how necessary joy is. It's not frivolous. The other piece that I really honed in on what you said, like this idea that when someone has gone through something horrible, when you are a survivor of fill in the blank, that you must be sad, and how narrow and binary that is in its thinking. And also, though, the way people sometimes get, I think, how do I want to phrase this? Because I don't want to put this on the survivor, but we have a kind of cultural norm of like, oh, well, you're so sad. Now I'm going to give you attention. You're so sad. This kind of bolsters the case, as opposed to, hey, like, I went through this, my resilience got built thanks to it. And here I am in my thriving. Like, why are we not celebrating that instead of pitying people when they're in their sadness? It's just, I don't even know that there's more of a point than that to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't think that we are not trained, but I don't think we were bred to be equipped to handle those kind of things.
Yeah.
Which sucks.
It does.
It really sucks.
Yeah, and that's why we get to be here creating different cultures.
Yeah. Something that I also, and I want to ask you too, if this comes up, especially now, I'm noticing I've been navigating my own grief for the last 2 years. My grandfather died. My cousin died this year. It's a lot of grief in different capacities are coming up. And I also don't think people know how to deal with that, because we are a culture that says, knock it off. You swallow it. You take that pill. You stop it. Is that a feeling? Shut it down. Do you see that also happening? Like more people grieving
all the time? We, talking about things that are sad norms of our culture, we're grief anemic. And like, oh, okay, so your person could die, family member, spouse, what have you. It's like, you get a 3-day bereavement leave, get back to it. Like the fact that that's like a norm in our society is just absolutely crazy. Also, how isolated most of us are in our grief, when really and truly it's something that needs to be held in community. And so I've learned a lot about grieving well through more indigenous traditions, where it is held as a ritual and supported more widely, because both of my parents are dead. I've been through a lot of loss in my life in that form too. And it's like, wait, what do I do with this? Like I'm supposed to hold this by myself? And no, I couldn't. It really broke me down. And so it's, for me personally, drew me to look for more communal spaces among my clients and the people that I support. What I see happen a lot is that eros and grief, I really see as integrally woven in with one another. Eros as life force energy. Grief is an expression of that, right? It's visceral. It's full of sensation and emotion. It moves us. And so I see a lot of times my clients who come in for a more expansive experience of their sexual aspect of eroticism often end up tapping into grief unbidden.
Yep.
They didn't know that's what they were here to do. And it may be very generalized, very undifferentiated grief, as opposed to saying, I am grieving this particular loss or this particular occurrence. It's just the well of energy gets tapped through pleasure, but energy is energy. It just wants to move. And so grief will often come bubbling to the surface and spilling out. And it's like, oh, and the fact that I get to be there and hold them with that, like be with them in that so they're not entirely alone, for many is a first time experience. Because again, back to what we're taught and shown, that privatize your grief, be quick about it, be tidy about it. And that's just not how that works.
Don't let it spill into anyone else's life.
Yeah.
And when I ask you about your grief, keep it cute. Like, oh, you're okay. Yeah, you're fine. Not like, I'm actually doing bad. And they're like, oh, what do you do with that energy?
Yeah. Yeah. We're just like, there's such a discomfort with other people's discomfort, right? That is conditioned into us. But again, I say conditioned because I don't believe that that's true. Back to our innate capacities for empathy and sympathy, giving a nod to the fact that for most of evolutionary history, we've lived in village and in tribe and in communal structures where these things were shared. So the way we isolate with these things in our modern culture is just really not natural. Really not natural.
That's the part we should be focused on, the parts that are actually bringing us down, instead of like, you don't deserve joy. No, I do deserve joy. Why are you trying to stop my joy?
Exactly. Don't be stopping anybody else's joy. More joy of us. I think that's a good thing if we're coming away with more questions. We want to keep the inquiry going. And so if people want to know more about you, more about tending the garden and the other offerings that you're making, where should they go to find you? How can they dive in?
Yes, I'll give you 3 websites: traumaqueen.love, tendingthegarden.love, Cintima.co if you want to become an intimacy coordinator. And social media, it's Jimanekia. If you can spell it, you can find me. Tendingthegarden.for, the number, .sas, and then Cintima.co. Those are the places.
Okay. And for anybody who's listening, these will all be in the show notes. So please do not worry about committing that to memory. Just go ahead and click on those links. And while you're there, if you love this conversation and you want to hear more, drop us a little review, show the love so that we can have more of these discussions getting out into the world, because goodness knows we need them. Jimanekia, thank you. This has been totally delightful. I love getting to talk shop and be in these dynamic conversations. Is there anything, like one last nugget that maybe we didn't touch on at all, or something you really want to give emphasis to the folks who are listening who might now be curious about a deeper way to explore their own trauma healing, their own joy, their own grief, whatever it is? What would you leave them with?
We can be triggered by any of our 5 sensors, and we can also be grounded by any of our 5 senses. So as you were saying, spend a little time with your senses. See what feels good for you. Maybe you don't know what brings you joy yet, but like, see what what makes you giggle, what makes you sit a little bit. Maybe it's a certain song. Maybe it's a visual thing. We have computers in our hands every day. Lean into that. Get creative.
Love that. Thank you. Yes to creativity. Yes to sensuality. And thank you again for being here on Deeper with Darshana. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you.